YouTube is going to kick right in here. But Facebook has a little extra thing. All right, so we're live, and there's some exciting things here that I think are exciting. Let me just, because Facebook has this extra step I got to do, I'll just take care of it, and then send it out. Okay, we're going to share it to our group. Portrait painters, friends, colleagues. All right, so we are live, as you can probably see. It's been a while, so it's like when you're done with your weekend, you gotta knock the dust off. I'm not doing Mondays, I think, is the way to go. Are we live? We're live. Because then I can kind of get caught up on some other things, and then we can do a full, hopefully today, my hope is, I'm not even going to say hopefully, I'm going to say we are going to do 2 full sessions of Bob Ross. All right, so here we go. We're painting Bob Ross, digital painting of Bob Ross, and there's some good news. We're going to change the way we do the time lapse for this one. Because it's such a large composition, you know, we've got sort of all these areas of interest: the head, the hand, the other hand, the palette, all that stuff. So what I'm going to do for the time lapse is I'm going to zoom in on each of these areas. So the time lapse will have like kind of different segments. Anyway, hard to explain, but you'll believe it when you see it. So if anyone's out there in the Streamverse and wants to chat or discuss what's up, you know, just give a shout. I'm still kind of making sure that I have my stuff set on my end, and then we're gonna figure it out. Figuring out. I think I was once part of a figurative painting exhibition called Figuring Out. And anyway, so okay, what's happening here? Yeah, good. Okay. Good news. We've got we are looking pretty good as far as our live stream. Not our live stream, our time lapse. Okay. What else is going on? I'm not loving the way hang on. I'm not loving how Okay. I don't love the way I'm seeing like my... All right, well, forget it. You know what? Forget it. Let's just work here. So, let's just get working. Okay? So what does that mean exactly? Today, because we are on my display where I'm doing the screen grab, I'm excited to say that I've got, oh boy. I'm excited to say that I've got the head completely in focus. So that's good. I think today what I'm going to work on, at least for this morning session, is like finish blocking in the head until about, I'd say 10:30. So let's just do this. We can grab this. Wait a minute, what's that? Not my brush. This is not my brush. Oh no. Mixer brush, come on. Oh boy. This is my favorite part of the whole process here. Okay, that's my mixer brush. And then now we have to escape and then come back into full screen mode. Okay. So, Bobby Ross here. I'm going to feed in the beard section here. That actually should be darker than that, but I'm going to put that in. Also, there's a nice sort of dark here. And then we're gonna grab miniature painting, right? Whenever I was learning to paint, I would usually have like 2 sessions of painting a day, 3 hours each. One would be from 9 to noon, and then the other would be from 1 to 4. And an example of how it might work was we would paint the figure from, speaking of figuring out, we would paint the figure in the afternoons, let's just say. And then when I started painting, it was like we would draw a statue, a plaster statue, like a sculpture. The first one I ever did was like a little, what are they called? The little seraphim. And what else am I trying to say? Okay, so then in the afternoon, we would have a fun, we would go in and that was like your portrait lesson. You're like learning how to paint the face. But then by the evening, by the afternoon, it was like you got to paint the figure. So you'd have the live model set up. The nude model would be set up in the studio. And obviously, when you're painting a model, the model has a face. So, it was like you had to paint the head, and this is hard to explain. When we were painting the figure in school, it was like everybody had, you needed to fit, like, there was only one model. So you had to fit like 12 students surrounding the model, or more. I forget exactly how many. But when the model was sitting for the portrait or for the figure painting session, everybody had to have their canvases quite far away because everybody had to share the same model. So what ended up happening was the model would fit on a relatively small piece of paper. It wouldn't be life size. So the model would be under life size, like, I don't know, like this. That was like the size of the paper usually, like, I don't know, half, something like that. And so the head on the model would be like tiny, like this. And it was very hard to get in here and do that kind of make those sorts of like tiny changes with just like a tiny, I should say this, for 3 years, you're expected and encouraged to, required really to paint, to draw, to use charcoal when you're learning the techniques. And I, to this day, think that that's like one of the most important things for any art student to be guided through, is that understanding of drawing as opposed to just jumping into painting. So, because drawing's easier to handle than paint at first. Okie dokie. Hold on, I have some good news from another. Okay. So that was a little. This is one of those mornings where there's some. I was saying to myself, I gotta get on there and stream this morning, and I knew I had some things that I had to address as for like work. And because this stuff is sort of my priority, like, I just decided, let's do what we can, and then if we can't finish it all, we just have to. But of course, what happens when you do that is you get voicemails and people bleeping this way and that way. Hold on. Okay. You know, sometimes I don't know what to say. All right, let's zoom out. Take a look. We're always zooming in and zooming out. Squint, just really squint and see, okay, where is this big area of dark of the beard? Okay, we got a nice sort of triangular patch of beard that's going to go up this way. Then there was a dark that lives in there. And, you know, forgive my Bob Ross-isms here, but we'll find out where this dark lives. So, you know, what do? We keep looking and learning. We want to get, we want to pop in these areas. Oh, another thing to do is make sure we're on the right layer. Okay, we are. Good. It's, I have to say, it's been a long time since I've really been painting. And for one thing, it's good to be back. It's good to be back at it. But it's also reminding me just how much there is to learn and how much of this is about being patient. In fact, it's like a lot of painters want to look their painting to look like it was done quickly. But in a way, the best way to go about making it look like it was done effortlessly, quickly, whatever word you want to use, is to be calm and, excuse me, I hope I caught that in time. So like with everything else, just like I said earlier, a lot of this is knocking the dust off from the weekend and trying to get back into the zone. Big way to do that is to turn off your phone, but when you're streaming, it's not always easy to do that. And then you have people who expect results. So I remember last time I made kind of a mistake with the eye. So what all is going on? Does anybody out there want to chime in and talk about what they do for artwork or what brings them here? I don't even know if anyone's watching the stream, but if you are, I love to have input, even if it's, hey, what are you doing? Why are you painting this guy? He's Bob Ross. He's a legend. And I had this high-res photo kicking around. Don't tell Bob Ross his state. Yeah. Because they're sharks. Boy, they'll send a cease and desist so fast. It'll make my head spin. But then you never know. Like maybe this is like his own personal photo. Maybe this belongs to the family. Okay, so this is where I can start to feel myself lock in a little bit. It's funny, you're in the zone with this sight size technique thing when you let yourself watch when you let your primary focus be the actual subject. In other words, I'm not staring at my painting anymore. I'm staring at the subject matter. I'm staring at the photograph. I'm also glancing over at my painting, but mostly nature, or in this case, Bob, in this case, the photograph of Bob, is the most important thing to look at. So it's like you gotta take a deep breath, breathe in, look at the photo, and then pull that information that you're seeing into the painting. So easier said than done. And how we do it is by hook or by crook. And you just are constantly having to remind yourself, don't look at the Because basically, if I look at my painting, there's really no advantage to staring. There's no value in looking at your painting, because your painting, I mean, when you're putting the marks down, yes, put the mark down. But then immediately look over and compare the two. Flick your eye back and forth from painting to subject and see, is that accurate? How accurate? How inaccurate? And, then you get into all kinds of other matters like, well, what's accurate mean? Like, do you want it to be photorealism? Do you want it to have a little bit of flair? What else? And, the other thing to think about here is, I wouldn't want all this sort of progress to be being made here and then not have it being time-lapse. That's not for anybody to worry about except for me, but just saying, sometimes I get a little uneasy. All right. With that said, I'm so nervous, I'm going to go check it out. Yeah, so I don't know about you, but to me, what I'm seeing is what I'm seeing is the grays in the head. Weird. Oh. I think I get it. That needs to be adjusted eventually. Gulp. So we're just going to put in some fluffy curls here. And I'm not going to, it's almost impossible to describe this without using silly words and sounds, but basically, you see, I don't know exactly where the curls go, but I know they're about this size and shape, and we can put them in there more as textural indications of curl. Not like, we're not looking and finding exactly where that curl goes. We're just kind of getting the basic gist. So speaking of basic gists, what's this? Is this one? Is this that dark? I don't know if I have an internet connection problem or if I have a settings problem within my software. But what I am seeing is a kind of periodic warning coming out from my software that says, warning, there's too many curls, trying to be processed by the stream software. I hope that's, I know that's sort of joking, but I think there's just something going on with my. So if you're watching and you think, oh, I can't, he's breaking up, I can't hear him, and you care, let me know. And then we'll have more data to work with as we resolve these technical things that so often plague streamers. I know nothing about streaming. I'm new to streaming. I'm pretty new to digital painting. And I just would love to focus on the digital painting and not the come on brain, finish the sentence, not the technical kind of elements of it, but it's all part of the fun. So there we go. We're going to mix and match. So with that all said, I'm going to continue to flick my eye back and forth. So basically what I'm doing is I'm looking at my subject and I'm looking at my painting and I'm looking for what's wrong. And right now the biggest thing wrong is there's a big chunk of gray blank canvas in the middle of his lovely hairdo. So I'm going to find out where these darks live by flicking my eye back and forth and saying, okay, like maybe about here. Like, see this one, how it curls up and over? Basically, you're feeding in the darks and keeping an eye on where they live in the photo. So mostly, again, I have my eye on the photo. I'm sort of aware of where my brush is dancing on the painting, but primarily you want to learn to train your eye to primarily be looking at I'm pointing the wrong side because it's reversed, but primarily you want to be looking at the photo. So you're going to see my eyes are doing the wrong thing. Maybe I should flip my webcam. Anyway, all these things need to be ironed out, but again, we don't need to go too crazy with like accuracy in the hair. I mean, it's certainly fun, but we don't want this to be a portrait of Bob Ross's giant hair. So we want this to be a portrait of Bob Ross, which includes giant hair, but the hair needn't be the focus of the portrait. But you can see there's a way to make it fun, particularly like as as we advance in this portrait and kind of get it to a place where the hair is maybe mapped in, and oh, there we go, encoding overloaded. Did you notice that, anyone? Did I turn into like a digital monster or something momentarily? Very curious. All right. So where was I? Yeah. So we're gonna map in the basic various tonal shifts in the hair. So look, basically there's the dark darks. There's one here, you know. We have those. And then there's the middle value, those auburn colors. And then there's this highlight. I'm sorry, there's a light shape here. And then there's the sprinkled highlights at the very tip top of the value range. And so we're just trying to get a vague, almost like a misty, it's like what my teacher used to call pulling the likeness out of the mist. You start vaguely and you can mush the colors around until they start to match what you're seeing here. And then in the final stages, maybe we won't complete this until like the end of the painting. So like in maybe a few more days, when we've made real headway, we'll look back and say, okay, are there any accents that need to be hit in the hair? And yes, there are tons. There's like little ones here. You have to choose how many. How many do you want to hit? So here's a good example. I thought I did a pretty decent job of like getting the highlights in the hair, but it looks like I went a little heavy-handed with the highlights there. And again, there are no real mistakes in the hair at this point. There's no making mistakes is what I mean. Like if you're interested in learning how to do this, you want to get the basic shapes correct, but don't beat yourself up if you've got like, I don't know, things that look wrong and like, it's hard. I know I'm not going to lie. I beat myself up the whole time. And I remember talking to one painter, actually he's like a purveyor of high quality fine arts materials. And he was like very passionately talking about painting, even though I don't even know, like some people say he's painted. He said he seems to think he seems to have some experience of painting, but he talked about it like it was a battle or like a war. And and that's, you're constantly like, you're looking out and trying to keep things alive, like keep things going, in the face of many different various, anyway, this was this guy's analogy. I don't want to be disrespectful of people who are, who've been in actual battles, but I think my point is, or his point was that it's not an easy thing. You're doing it right if you're struggling. And over time, like, you just become more comfortable with the struggle. And you become confident that, yes, you're going to lose some ground and have to go back and save some of your brush strokes that you put down and change things and all that. But most importantly is that you persevere. Okay, so it's especially difficult around this area of the hair. I mean, I'm looking at this and saying, uh-oh, yeah, it's fine, but we need a lot more detail in there. I don't love how I've done it, so I'm just going to zoom out a little bit, and I'm going to go back over these areas that I believe could be better attended to. So like this, so you can see that there's a shadow edge that pops up and curls around. You're going to hear me start gulping because I want to get, like, basically I want to get back into the features of the head, like the eyes, nose, ears, mouth. But you gotta make sure the pass is done on the rest here. So again, flicking your eye back and forth, you're going to be able to see things standing out, which are inaccurate. Okay. We'll pop in this, get a little anchor here, because we know there's an anchor there. A visual kind of cue for where this thing lives. That's going to help us sort of just get the gesture of the thing going. It's hard. I mean, there's no getting around it. It's just hard stuff. What about this flick of highlight that lives here? Is it here? Yeah, we can pop that in, then zoom out and see if it's accurate. We can... I don't think we want all this stuff to be reading like highlight right now. In other words, move it up to the edge, basically. Because, yes, it's bright at the edge, but I'm making these brightest brights, like you'll see if you zoom out at what I'm doing. Previously, I'd had those brightest brights living too far inland, so to speak, from if the water is the background and the land is this mass of hair. I believe previously I'd had the highlights living too close to too far inland, but really it's just a strip of super highlight, and the rest is this sort of middle value. And we should always go in here and make sure we're being responsible with our brushwork. when you're painting in a studio, you have to walk up to the canvas and paint it. When you're painting digitally, you can paint from a distance, and you can sometimes get yourself into trouble that way if you're not remembering to zoom in and really look at how the brush work is looking up close. But okay, so let's do this. Gosh, it's so difficult. I think this is probably more out like that. See what we've got. We're going to surround our darkest darks where possible. Like for another good example is here, like I've got a dark that stripes down here, but it shouldn't be that way. I think this needs to be broken up. In fact, it's pretty messy up close. All right, so let's I'm just gonna say thank you, Benita, for the like on my Facebook stream. Appreciate that. And we are going to. We must carry on. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by my feeds here. All right, so I think now we can find our way toward a dark value. Again, zooming in, getting right up close to where this value should be and hitting it. And one of the hardest things for me as a person who can easily get distracted by sort of details and shiny little passages and things. We just have to be patient with that desire. There's this tension between getting it perfect and being aware enough to say, just make a beautiful brush stroke. Don't make the right brush stroke. Don't think about what the photo looks like so much when you're painting. When you actually go to put a mark down, it's more about oh, look, here I am. It's a great example of what I'm telling you not to do, is get distracted by details, but I am. We're going to put that in. So see the area here where the lip is a bit lighter on this side. I'm not sure exactly where that is, but my guess is that it's somewhere around here. There's so much going on this head, in his head. So, okay, good. Oh boy. What? Might have to take a quick break in about 9 minutes, but the reason is oh, good. All right, we can use advanced features now. I forget what those are, but YouTube audiences, look forward to advanced features. It's hard to keep track of all this stuff sometimes. All right. So we zoom in enough to kind of get a ballpark estimate of what the sort of middle values under the eye are here. You got to kind of get a basic value. We'll talk one day about what I mean when I say value. I think value, like you think about it like this. Imagine all this stuff was black and white. And there's no color on this image. Just pretend that's the case. Then imagine that each value, each color, even though they're not colors now, they're black and white. This is a 0, and this is a 10. So 0 is the lowest or darkest, and 10 is the highest or brightest value. Well, actually, this titanium white on the palette would probably be the 10, and a black would probably be the 0. But if that's what's called a tonal range. The range of values, tonal values. Now, values, when I say values, I mean, here, let's have a little fun here and just knock in this top of the head. So that's your tonal range of tonal values. So you know that any item on this whole painting is going to either be somewhere between a 0 and a 10. But unlike paint by numbers, paint by numbers only probably has a handful of those values. here the range is infinite, or at least it's in the millions, because we're on a, we're painting digitally, so there's like millions and millions of possible colors. I don't know much about computers, but I know that there are that it's not infinite when you're on a screen. Maybe it is, I don't know. But I know that when you're oil painting, the possibilities are infinite as far as like, light and dark. It's not, you're never going to see the same value range twice. But generally speaking, you can categorize a dark as being a darkest dark or a lightest light. And you sort of just learn to mix that color. You can mix a value like that. Over time, you just learn, you gain the muscle memory to say, well, that's black, but it's not a 0, it's maybe a 0.2, and you make that calculation, you mix up the color, put it down, and then you put it on the canvas, and then if it's not right, you can say, oh, I overshot that. Speaking of which, let's go a little crazy here. Look at all the different values within the highlight on the eye. It's pretty amazing. Like, this is a painting from a digital photo, so you can see this. But like, you'd think, oh, that's the white of the eye. So it's got, I'm not going to paint that way. I'm not going to do this that way, but I am going to find out what the lightest light is and just hit it. So I know, okay, like that's basically the lightest value in the eyeball. And potentially, no, not the painting, because we can see not only is this Scientology medallion very bright, but so is the titanium white and all that. So anyway, I think you get the idea. Here we are. We're sort of careening toward the hour mark. And usually at the hour mark, I want to put a bookmark in things and take a little stretch. So to that end, we're going to put on our starting soon, 9:05 Eastern. A bit of a stressful start this morning, not with painting, but just with life creeping in, but we're gonna persevere. Let's do 10:05 Eastern, starting soon. I want to change this color. Well, no, I don't. Forget it. How do we zoom? Should we zoom into this? Starting soon. That's kind of nice. All right, I'll be back. All right. As advertised, we're starting again. I don't like this glare. You know what it is? There's when there are clouds, it's better. The light is better. Plus, speaking of like giant hair, I think my hair is starting to become a distraction. At least as far as how the But anyhow, we're back. We're gonna do away with this. Okay. And then we're just gonna pick up where we left off. Gotta watch out about my hot beverage. Again. It's kind of a cool little effect here with the little speckles of blue in the background. Oh, look at that. My encoding is yet again overloaded, whatever that means. All right, let's see. Are there anything going on here that needs to be noted? I don't know, but let's keep trying. Something like that. Neon Mantis. Oh, thank you. Awesome. What's going on? Thank you. So Neon Mantis is not getting buffering, on his end. So that's great. Thank you, bud. How's it been? How's life? I'm trying to get a foothold on things here. And it's never too easy. I completely kind of have lost my paint by numbers charcoal under layer. That's a constant threat. All right, so this is important, and actually it's important that I have my charcoal underlayer here, because last thing I want to do is start finding out where this eyeglasses live. Whoops. And then why not, since we were over here, let's do the same deal over here. I mean, this is crazy, but it's just fun to look in there and see. The eyes are the windows of the face, as Christopher Walken once said. So, yeah, I think Weird. Weird alert. I didn't pick up the photo, I didn't pick up the image, the color that I wanted. I'm also starting to realize that there are like 70s artifacts on this photo. Early 80s. What do you think? This photo was like circa 1981. Like, what happened here? Oh well. We're gonna have to figure that out later. Here's a nice little element here. See how this, you can almost, no. I don't want him to look like he's like got like antennae or something sticking out of his forehead. Oh boy. Let's pin that back down in here. Zoom out. Yeah, I've got like way too much activity going on there. All right, another very important accent here. This is always the way with people who have glasses. I want to make sure I know what I'm talking about here. So, yeah, that's clearly, look, there's this dark that you lay in there. Just grab this and erase a little bit here. Oh boy. Forget it. No erasing today. I love the innocence in this eye on the right. There's a kind of like childlike wonder. Childlike wonder. It's just Bob. That was just who he was. I bet the antenna is to do with his cult medallion powers. I'm certain of it. I am certain of it. I think he would probably appreciate it if we were to try to keep that under wraps. So that's why I'm going to do my best to, be discreet when it comes to extraterrestrial activities. But no doubt, that's why we see that kind of pushing through. And it's hard to deny here. You see he's about to take shape, take flight even. You're not fooling anybody. Ross, you're not fooling anyone. PBS has been calling all day. They want you to put a stop to this stuff on the show. All right. It's like at that time, the ratings were just so high. The ratings were so good. He had PBS eaten out of his hand. He could do whatever he wanted on there. He had Peapod the Pocket Squirrel. Ever see that episode? You can't bring live animals on television, but he did it. So one thing that I noticed was a bit strange in how I handled this. There's a lot of that I would do over again if I had the chance, but we're not going to go too crazy. You just have to hope for the best. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, Peapod he'd often make an appearance. Or I think he had a number of squirrels, but I just will never forget the Peapod, the pocket squirrel episode. Because it was so surprising. Like, whoops. All right. My nerves are acting up. Maybe I need to get Bob, read some of the Bob Ross literature and try to go clear a little bit before I move on. We're going clear with Bob Ross. I don't want to just slander this man, and I hope everybody knows that this is satire. I mean, at least as far as I know, he was not in any way affiliated with Scientology. I think he had, he was too huge for that. I mean, he had his own religion going. He didn't need Scientology. But I just I kind of find it amusing just to blankly assume that that's what that necklace is. Of course it is. All right, I'm getting lost here because this is a great example where fear takes over and you start thinking, I don't want to mess anything up. And that's exactly when you need to start just going, you need to go, don't be afraid. Bob wouldn't be afraid, right? So we'll put this in. There's a couple of moments there. Yeah, it's all in good fun. Mantis agrees. Now, big item of business here is going to be just finding out, you can't just pick any old color. It's tempting, but you can't because especially in the beard, the colors change so rapidly from light to dark that if you put your little eyedropper there and try to find a color, you have to make sure that you have to do a visual spot check to make sure you're on target there. Now, something like this to connect the dots here, really today, or at least for the first half of this session, I'm interested in marking in values and blocking off the canvas, so to speak. So I think we already got that started here in the nostril. There's always a big anchor point that you need to address. We did a pretty good job of getting those. What we haven't done, to my satisfaction maybe, is find a highlight along the bridge here. Not the bridge, but the over the nose wing. The old nose wing. Ooh, I lost a highlight there. Did you see that? So, and I don't even remember where I lost it, but gotta bring it back. Oh boy. Well, we'll find it at another time. All right, so we're zooming out. We're taking a look. It's always what we're doing. All right, so speaking of, well, gosh, I keep saying this. I'm like, we're going to dive into that Scientology medallion. Today is the day. It will be today. I guarantee that. But it's not, I'm too scared to just go in there right now. You don't want to summon Bob knows what. Okay, what are we gonna do? Yeah, that's a good one. It's a good color. You gotta wait for the right moment. Now, speaking of, so I feel it's one of those things, like there are days when you're gonna feel like you're painting and you're like, it's like so effortless. I'm just not afraid to like put marks down, and that's kind of what you hope for. But other days there's an apprehension, and I think some of that has to do with like what they say about drawing every day, like never a day without a line, they say. I don't know who said that. Was that Ang? Somebody like that. But had I been painting over the weekend, or drawing at least, I might not find myself so desperate to knock off the dust. It's kind of like, I mean, it's very much like anything, but I play guitar, and at the end, there's no, like, it takes about 7 minutes of noodling and doodling with a guitar to kind of get resituated and kind of trust your hands and the fluidity and all that, and sort of stretch your muscles a bit. And the same is true of this. Like, your eye is a muscle. Your hands need to know how to operate, and so it's kind of like anything else that takes the sooner you get in there and start knocking the dust off, or in the speedrunning world, I've heard the term de-rusting. If somebody's like running a video game that they haven't run for a long time. You know, that's why you got to do it every day. Okay, speaking of doing it every day, I've been watching some of the Major League Baseball excitement. And we're coming up on championship season. So that's cool. All right, let's fire up this nice little red shadow here. Whoa. Okay, something like that. Doesn't have to be too specific yet. And then I think what I did here, here I am second guessing and not drinking my coffee, I guess. I have 3 minutes left to drink my coffee. All right, so here we are. We're logged in here to the neck. And let's not forget how critical the connection between the head and the neck is very important. So we're gonna try to get a grip on that. Here's a good example, like, of finding a value that matches. You know, you're not like, where am I going to find this? I don't know. It's not something like that's good. And then you can safely plunk that in. Funny how dark that is. Or not how dark it is, but what the value is. It's the same value as my background. So boom, 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 boom. Let's get this shadow moving through here. That wasn't dark enough. Pardon me. Okay. So if I just look, what I'm seeing here is basically, it's complex here, but I think I've lost the medallion chain here. So like that medallion chain kind of lives here. Okay, we'll just put something in there for now. And then we'll find this fleshy part of the neck, the value. See, we're not too concerned exactly what it is, but we just have to make sure it's there. Let's find this architecture of the collar. Whoops. Oh, wow. If you really lean on the gas with this, if you push in with the brush, it like splays the virtual ferrule, splays the hairs out to the ferrule. Okay. Don't know if that's gonna serve us, but I'm gonna try. Yeah, I think what happened was I miscalculated a couple of things when I was placing this down. Like, for instance, I think this is our darkest dark. Buffering, encoding buffering. And that makes a bit of a difference, to be honest, the way the head sits on the neck. I would say, yes, there's like a... Basically, I overshot things here. So like, yes, here's the darkest dark, and it probably loops up here. And the rest is really... Well, we got to feed in that dark there, because we've already messed up the color. We botched it up. I botched it. Do. I think that's what we'll do tomorrow, is pop in some of the Bob Ross theme music, if we can, without him sicking like the most terrifying legion of attorneys upon me. You can imagine. His stable of lawyers is more powerful than, I don't know, Tom Cruise's legal team. They can just make people disappear. They don't even have to file any paperwork. They're just gone. Okay. No thanks. I have my headphones in and I don't know why. Gone with the trees. Yeah, that's right. He'll paint you into a... It's like those sorts of places in New Jersey where people wind up in the pines. He'll paint you into oblivion. So we want to keep progressing, even though I didn't address completely the... Oh, man. I mean, you got to admit this guy's got some serious swagger here with his the collar. I was just sort of noticing that, like, I mean, he just kept riding the wave of the 70s well beyond the kind of social norms of the mid 80s, right? I mean, he kind of looked like this until the later years. All right, I'm trying now to first stop chattering so much. And I'd like to make some more real decisions here. Let's fine tune where this is. Where the end of the line for this hair is. Let's say it's about there. That gives us a little more. Even the subtlest, I would say, like, it's like if somebody, I always say this, but when somebody has a haircut and they come in and you see them for the first time after getting the haircut, they're like, whoa, that's what you look like? In the same way, if you don't get the hair accurate in the photo, in the painting, you're going to get those sorts of discrepancies. It's going to look like the likeness is off somewhat. So that's where accuracy helps. Okay. Let's see about. You can see, you'll start to get to know me if you watch these streams. I avoid the hard work at all costs. But what I'm going to do now is get into it. So here's the hard part. Determining where the corner of the eye actually is and what's all my, like, I think we'll just do something like that. I think there's like a highlight in the corner of the eye somewhere here. Let's just mark it. And then look in here. You want to look for the the eyelash as it wraps around beyond the eye itself. So let's say this is the eyelash. It comes down a bit more like this, right? And then the eye itself might be here, but, we don't want to. And now another piece of work that we need to figure out is, like, look at all this right over the middle here of where his upper lid line is. We can place it and then zoom out, find, like, I just made a pretty bold guess there, and it was not smart. But you have to do something, right? You can't just leave it till the nth hour. 11th. All right. another critical piece of info here is just looking at the eye and looking at how the upper lid communicates with the lash line. Okay, I don't know exactly, but something like that. You know, see, we're starting to see already that likeness come into play better than it was. We can also remind ourselves, don't neglect to paint in the what's called the brow ridge, I believe. We need to get some anatomy here, but no, that's over on top of the eyebrow. Whatever this is, it's the space between the eyebrow and the eye. It's like the fleshy part of the eye socket. So, I mean, really, this is just paint by numbers right now. And then once we have it, once we've blocked in, as it's known, the sorry, I think I'm getting some allergies from my seasonal change of whatever. Okay, so here's where our lid are, the whites of the eyes. I'm going to keep telling stories about my painting teacher, because he is a funny character. And he would tell stories, like he would come in, and if you left the white of the eyes like this, like unpainted, he would often refer to this anecdote from the Revolutionary War, which was, they would tell their soldiers, don't shoot until you see the whites of the eyes. And I guess that was a means of making sure they didn't waste musket fire. But often he would say that when the whites of the eyes in your painting were like comically too bright. In this case, because we're not starting on a white canvas, it's almost like the white of the eye is a known, it's like it's there, it's already there. But the more we surround it with value, like I can see the white of the eye here, it's like, I can see the white of the eye, time to shoot. Okay. Looking along here at, I'm going to sort of try to prove my point in case it was, well, no, I'm not. No, I'm talking to myself now. I'm just making stuff up. All right, let's look closely at the eye. Wow, there's a lot going on here. And you just have to flick your eye back and forth, as I've said countless times. And then you kind of make a memory. You make a sort of recording in your memory of what you saw, and do your best to kind of place it in. Okay, so now I'm just making things up. And you got to remember, you got to know when you're just making it up to get it done, and stop yourself and say, nah, like, let's zoom out. Find out where that triangle lives. Just like Bobby would say, right? Find where that little triangle lives. Take a little bit of the flesh color here and feed that in. And one of the things that I thought was pretty cool from watching that documentary was that he had a little bit of a dark side, and he could turn that on, if you weren't careful. I wouldn't have suspected that, but then the son or somebody was saying that this was a character that he'd put on, which kind of makes sense. I mean, nobody is really truly themselves when they're yapping. Let's get this going here. Okay, we gotta find this thing. So you'll see what happens here. If I try to put in this dark, because I'm painting into the light, it's a mess. You're better off getting that value correct in the beginning, but at least now I have like a kind of indicator of where it lives. Here's another thing that I think should be done. I don't know if you see this, but I'm seeing here in the hair here, there's like a little slightly darker area there. I didn't get it, but it tells me that there's we need to address the hair creeping this way. Something like that. So like even that little shift of bringing in the edge of the hair in is going to start changing the relationship between the eye and the hair on the left, and it has a significant impact on the likeness, all these little things. But again, the goal today anyway is to cover the canvas of the head and the shoulders, maybe. Let's do that. Let's just grab a little zoomity zoom, hit the shoulder, just so we know, like something like that, like a nice calligraphic stroke indication, whatever. Bobby, you're haunting me, pal. I have to say, there's nothing more, when he had it, the term joy of painting. I have to admit that I've spent a lot of my adult life running from the joy of painting, because I don't know why exactly, but some artists just wake up every day and they say, I can't possibly not paint. Like, I'm going to throw everything out the window except for my painting even. That's what a lot of artists are like. For me, I've never been like that. I have a lot of trouble getting motivated to paint. And I'll be honest with you, part of what helps me with that is this stream. Like, knowing that I can go on here and start painting and that somebody wants to watch it, like, it makes me, it like feeds the fire, so to speak, and it makes the joy of painting all that more palpable. So here, let's put in this little flick of highlight of the beard. We're going to have to revisit that. But the reason I say that is because, getting back to what I was saying, it's like some artists are like, they just live and breathe this stuff. They just can't. For me, it's a little bit more of like a chore. Like, oh gosh, I got to get the brushes out, and it's like lonely a little bit. Not that I don't mind being alone. Like, I like solitude and all that, but there's never any kind of like, when you're no longer at art school, you're not like chit-chatting about painting all the time, and so this is kind of my way of attempting to create a little art community, and I'm thankful for you all for stopping by and seeing what's going on. It's motivational. And back to what I was saying about like the joy of painting. It's almost like the joy of painting lies in getting kind of seduced by it to some, like you have to show up and get sucked in by the project, or else what happens to me is I'll say, oh, I start imagining what it's going to be like to paint, and it's like, oh, and then I have to do this and it's going to be hard, and then I'll have to blur this edge and remember this, and I start whining about the process. But every time you actually do start painting, after a little while, you get this, like, you get into that where it flows, and it's not, yes, you're solving all those sorts of problems that you told yourself you would have to solve, but the solving of them is much more joyful than the memory of how solving those things seems. So anyway, that's the joy of painting. He was right. All right. I'm carving that little edge down too much. The beard there. So likeness is pretty good. What we don't have fully organized yet is the edge here. Like what's this? I don't know what this is. Is this? Yeah. Let's just pretend this is it. I often go too narrow with my smile marks and my lip line. Now we have the advantage of this being hidden within the beard, so we can get away with a little bit more shenanigans there, but let's try to get it right. Okay, we're gonna hit that, and then we're gonna, what was that line? What was that? The trees. Now, who was asking the other day about Ross's, I forget who that was, but someone in the chat was asking my thoughts on whether Ross is like really a good art teacher, or is he just, and I think like, there's a teacher for every stage in the artist's path, right? Like, and I think Ross may well be like the gateway. Like I certainly watched him paint, never thought that I would be going to a school that was dedicated to the study of portrait painting. And that's where I wound up for years. And I think seeing him on TV was kind of like, whoa, people paint? Like I was never watching people paint when I was a kid. So if nothing else, he'll open up your eyes to that painting is something that's done. So that alone is a good Bzz, getting buzzed. Okay, that'll be interesting. Funny that we can see the lighting a little bit from the photo shoot. I won't get into the details of what I'm seeing there because it's a little maniacal, the minutia here, but I think what so already we're kind of zooming along here, and we're coming up on a 2-hour mark where I'll take another break. I don't know, maybe I'll take a 10-minute break, but I feel like having a stretch, and then we'll get the last 45 minutes in, and like that. While we're kind of doing this, any ideas for next subjects? Like, I wonder if, like, part of me wanted to do like the whole PBS crew, like and maybe get Melody Sheep into the mix somehow. Melody Sheep is a brilliant musical artist who took the voices of all of these PBS legends, these icons of PBS television programs, and remixed their voices into like beautiful music. Very entertaining stuff. I would highly recommend looking at the PBS series. And then PBS, I think, eventually bought licensed the stuff. I don't know how it worked, but they were down. Whoops. So in this case, see how the shirt color is the same value as the background? That means it's up to us to preserve that. Ooh, boy. That was crazy. I don't like to do this often, but I knocked the Wacom tablet. Anyway, I'm babbling on about Melody Sheep. Just go check it out. We'll see what we can do. Maybe Melody Sheep wants to get involved here. So, what else happened? Yeah, I was thinking about who could be next. And in fact, I wasn't planning to do Bob at all this early because I wanted to actually save Bob for an oil painting in the studio. Now, this does not preclude me from doing that or preempt me. I don't know. But it, if anyone has any suggestions, like, I'll just explain what happened when I went about going to find reference images of Rogers. There aren't many, first of all, that have Fred with his mouth closed. he's always smiling, and that may just be like what we have to do eventually if we do paint him. I like a more dignified pose. I mean, like this is perfect. Like there's like a dignified smile here, and we're not seeing the teeth and everything. Not that we can't paint teeth, but I like to err toward the traditional, more conservative approach, and sort of reference those artists who throughout art history have like defined the art of portrait painting. So that's Velázquez, Sargent, et cetera, et cetera. And those guys and girls are not painting people's teeth. They are occasionally, actually. I'll show you some Sargents where we see the teeth. Okay, so here, forget that. I don't know why I just did those two marks. I was getting sucked into the joy. So this is all a long way of saying who's next on the chopping block. I wanted it to be Rogers or LeVar Burton or Julia Child, any of those guys and girls. But I'm afraid that I might have to pony up some cash for reference images, and I'm already in the red here, like sort of using my time that I could be working doing this because it's fun. But point is, I'd like to try to find a reference photo of one of these PBS folks that does justice, to my sort of vibe here. So, with all that said, we certainly know who the rest of the series would be. I mean, I think if we're going in threes, which might be the right way, Julia Child, yeah. Neon Mantis says Julia Child would be a good one. Only suggestion I have coming to mind is Mark Kistler. Who's Mark Kistler? Did I blow past? Well, we'll be to be continued with that. Thanks, Mantis. I don't know. I'm definitely locked in the 80s with my subject matter, and we got to get into the 90s at least, if not more contemporary. So I'm going to put my starting soon at, and we'll do 11:15 Eastern. Oh, God, it's locked. I'm going to try to have a bite and zoom in. There he is. He did the Draw Squad back in the 80s, became Imagination Station. Oh, cool. Wow. I know the name Imagination Station, but I don't know what the Draw Squad was. Wow. All right, there's some research to do. Thanks for that, Mantis. And I'm going to be back after a little break. Maybe the thing to do is to put on, well, we'll figure it out. I'll be back. All right. What do we got to do here? All right. We're going to take a look. Ba-da-da-da-da. There, I was on the wrong layer. So the real trick will be, and I've already done this research, like before I started Bob, I was like, because I knew I had a great photo of Bob. Before I started this one, I had been looking around for folks for whom I did not have good reference photos, and it never panned out. Like I looked for Fred Rogers. Didn't find any high res with mouth closed, but maybe there exists some. Somewhere out there. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Now look in here. So look at this. This is the sort of challenge that comes up. There's this bit of gray there. I don't know. When I flick my eye back and forth, I don't know which of these kind of tones it's going to be that make up that sort of shard of the puzzle piece, let's say. Oh, maybe it's going to be, speaking of shards, maybe it should be Jim Henson. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But when you identify where that little shard of the puzzle lives, you plug it in. And as I've said many times previously on this stream, like, you have to just put something down. Like, even if you're not really good at knowing exactly where it's supposed to land and all that stuff, that's like the facility with which you can make that call grows over time. And so that comes with time. I'm still working on it. In fact, I have to constantly push myself to not just willy-nilly drop in a shape, like I have to think about what that shape of the brushstroke is. But I guess what I'm steering toward is saying, yes, be aware of what that shape is and how it looks on the canvas, but the sooner you put something down, the sooner you have something with which to compare. So meaning, like here, I don't know what lives in this gray area here. But if I don't put something down, I'm never going to know, because it's just going to remain this gray. And so already, at least I can see, like, let's grab this color. Oh boy, that was this. Find out what's going on here. Looks like we've got a heck of a lot going on here in terms of shadow edges and stuff. I want to make sure that we don't we got to pay attention to how this stuff melts down here as it wraps around. Oh, buffering, stream buffering. And one of the things that can happen, so like that's pretty good, kind of wraps around. Let's get a highlight here and then bring it, clock it through. There's golden tone there. Probably didn't need to go. Blurring edges. Find our dark value here. Sorry, it's not a dark, it's a light. It's a middle value. I don't know. Close enough. Let's let this blur up and in. Okay. So, wow, time sure flies. What I'm going to do is obviously this is dependent upon Cinnabon Boy, thank you. Says, looking good so far. Thank you very much. I am ready to, I don't know. I'm trying to make a complete statement here. And so that's going to be a number of, I've been a little bit lazy as far as deadlines are concerned, meaning my goal was to finish the head, at least get a base layer down for the head. But I don't think I'm going to be able to do that, but I'm not going to be able to do that and the I'm not going to be able to do both that and the neck, I'm afraid. Maybe I can. My biggest problem here is that I botched up my underdrawing. How was the weekend? What is this? That. Something like that. Oh, geez, yeah. It's already early to mid-September. The trees are gonna start going. Speaking of trees. So maybe what I need to do now is, I think, here's what I'm going to do actually to solve this medallion issue. Am I? I don't know. No. See, what happens is if you start getting okay at judging what the value is going to be, you don't really have to, it kind of becomes autopilot. You just know what value lives where. And you can make that quick comparison. So I got up to Beacon, New York over the weekend. Nice. Whoop. There we go. We're going to blur that edge down. See, we got to figure out. You also don't always need to know exactly what the values are going to be, but you can just sort of soften and zoom out and see. All right, lots to review here. But yeah, I think looking good. One question is, do we have to figure the details out on this mustache and yeah, so look, this is just too abrupt of a shift from dark to light. And we'll grab, so what happens every time you do a brush stroke, the paintbrush gets wet. And so you got to keep cleaning it. That's not unlike a traditional oil painting process. So let's see here. I'm surprised this took me quite this long to get moving with the finished statement on the head. And I don't know what my excuse is there, but just taking it slow. It's the Bob Ross vibe. I mean, this is, he's just like, whatever. But man, if he would crank through these things real quick, right? I mean, he was editing, but was he? I don't really remember. I do think that he would do some edits. God, what So before I make a final pass here, I don't know. I'm just making stuff up now. I'm not really even observing that. And like I said earlier, there are days where you're just, it's kind of a slog. And it's not coming out. Even Bob, even the master had those, you look at some of the shows, it's like was that a good one? But he showed up, right? Okay. One of the hardest things about painting is like when you have to go from like flesh color to the eyeglasses, for example, here. That's tricky business because, oh God, don't do that. Yeah, it's, you have to pay very close attention. Like, look, this is problematic. I need to dig in here. Yeah, see, this is reading like a dark when it should be reading like a light. So, have the crow's feet tucked in here a bit better. At least know where they are. Again, there's some highlights under the eye, but I think for right now we just want to put in like a middle value for where the eyelid is, the lid line. Nah, that's dark. Let's find it here. So, like, something like that, where it's like the middleest value. And then you're going to have to go in later and play, do some scalpel work later. But because we've set ourselves the goal of not much time to get a complete statement, we're going to stick with it. Buffering. Okay. So now that we have a kind of, wait a minute. This wouldn't be good. Nothing. Just the ghosts of streams past coming back to haunt me. So now that we have our basic shape here, here's what I'd like to do. Why did I do this so... Why did I make this so dark like that? There's that. Let's just get moving on the Scientology swag here. This is like, what would this be? Is 10 years of going clear? Oh yeah. Slacker, what's happening? You should dress up like Bob, fro, Canadian tuxedo, and all the trimmings. I know it. I mean, I'm working on the hairdo. Got to get the beard going. We'll do that. I'm betting Bob will be voted into the one that people want to see done in oil in the studio. So I'll get the costume going. I'll try. You gotta bring Peapod the pocket squirrel. Oh boy. I think that's right. The Canadian tuxedo. It's been a long time. Got to get into the wardrobe. Well, I definitely appreciate the enthusiasm, and I'm going to do my best. I think at a minimum, the Patreon will have a Bob Ross Scientology medallion giveaway. We got to see really what's going on that medallion. I mean, what is this? Some sort of a horned beast. I mean, that's what that is. That's a moose. Or some other kind of, dare I say, like a cloven-hooved, well, we talked about this before, like the legal issues behind slandering Bob Ross and whether his estate would even care if we did that. And I proposed that if you did slander Ross, like if you did slander him, he probably has a team of lawyers that would make Tom Cruise, wither at the knees. Um, so you wouldn't want to mess with that. But no, I don't know. I just think like there's such a juxtaposition of this like egoless kind of cherubic man, and then you can't help but try to dress him up with like a darker side. And I think the medallion is what inspired the, this little this jewelry that he has on. Remember him talking? I remember him talking about God a lot when I watched his show. Right? Yeah. I mean, he's one step away from cult leader. I mean, I also surmised that his, he probably didn't need Scientology because he was too busy like running his own show. But I think it will forever remain a mystery what it is, this thing hanging off his neck here. The Canadian tuxedo. Could have been talking about Xenu. That's right. Yeah. Right. The other thing that he did a lot was when he would clean up his brushes, like this giant one he's got going here. Oh my God. That was like a sign. I'm working on a speaking of which, what is your thetan level? I try to keep religion out of it. I try to keep it clean. Lots of trapped alien souls in there. Oh my gosh. He is Xenu. It's Scientology, not religion. Fair enough. I mean, let's just hope the lawyers aren't watching when you say something like that. I'm hoping they get a good, healthy discount off their taxes with all the goodly deeds they're doing. It's Scientology, not religion, allegedly. I mean, is it just me, or is it? I guess it's hard for me to see. I don't know. Like, was this style? There were probably just so many people walking around that look like this that it's not fair to judge him as being odd, allegedly. I mean, I admire his style big time. And I think we'll get into this more when we get painting into the hands. But like, if you tell me that that's not, that those, what is that? I don't know if that's something that he's bringing out into. Yeah, that's right. I mean, I don't. That's a coke nail if I ever saw one. I'm sure he probably would use them to pop open a soda pop, not. I'm sure that's what you mean. He I mean, he clearly had some demons. Let's just look at the guy. But I think he brought so much joy to middle-aged women and children home from school with a fever that I think he's kind of like exonerated for any crimes. Okay, let me try to wrap this up in a way that is going to make sense for our next deep dive. Yes. Coke. Is he is he really Canadian? I mean, that's the other thing that I want to try to figure out. We'll have to do some real thorough research. So this will be interesting. We'll take a little slash of a highlight there, and then we'll have to fix that in post. But here we go. Here's where, you know, the myth and the man come together here, right in the kind of what is that part of the body? The head to toe denim is a dead giveaway. Yeah. Yes. Yep. So that brush, that back to the religion piece, the brush he's holding, and any other brush really that he would use, if you remember at the end when he would clean a brush, he'd say, "Now we'll beat the devil out of that brush." And that was his kind of way of having fun, and it all seems very innocent, but he'd take that thing. If I learned nothing else from Bob Ross in my own painting studio, it's how to dry off a big bristle brush when you're you know, before you wrap it up in a paper towel to kind of put it to bed for the day. You gotta beat the devil out of that brush. Okay. I think I'm gonna get sort of stupidly did that without realizing the mess it made. We've all done that. Yeah. That's another indication that he's operating on some kind of spiritual plane that's beyond human grasp. Like, why? How can he just do that? All right, so here, I'm going to take this. You have to make a mark. Oh boy, did you see that? What a mess. That's not what we wanted. I don't like erasing stuff with the delete button, but that's an example where there are no mistakes, right? Okay, there we go. We're just going to put the indication of the medallion chain there. Happy accidents. Slacker, you're dead on. There are no mistakes. Happy accidents. Let's find out. Speaking of happy accidents, where does the chain live here? Maybe it lives right here. We got to channel Ross. Maybe that chain lives right here. And God bless. Yeah, God bless, beat the devil out of the brush. I mean, there's no end to his. It's clear he's some Christian faith. I would think. So what we're gonna do is keep. Whoa. You know, that brings to mind another potential series. Like, what if we were to find some high-res images of Grimace, and like Hamburglar, Ronald, the whole, like, that could be another series, I think. But I think we're kind of going to go in a rhythm of 3 per whatever, 3 per. So here, listen, I'm getting way ahead of myself. This is me just, you gotta love the one you're with here. We got Bobby Ross. No, that wasn't right, but that'll, basically what I'm trying to do now is like plug in values. I mean, it's similar to like a math equation somewhat, where if you sometimes you just plug in an answer and then you can thereby sort of finish the calculation and see, is that the correct one? Like you know, and see. So that's why I'm, especially toward the end of a session here, you just sometimes have to start throwing stuff at the wall. That was not good. Oh boy. I've got to turn off my buzzing here. All right, just a few more minutes to go. And I think the secret here will be I gotta represent here. All right, there we go. Step it up. I don't know if I went too far there, but probably. Another thing that happens is you gotta find out, like if you have a slash mark like this that's just light to dark, you gotta blur that down. Because if your eye is gonna get caught on that thing and you're like, He'll forever be making bad judgments. Based off of that inaccuracy. So happy accidents, although they may be, they will still be accidents. And you know, that's one of the things about Ross that is, there's no, he's really inventing his world. I mean, he says it time and again. There are no rules in his world. You are the creator, is what he says. It is really a God complex that he talks about, and it's like, all right. Let's not go too far down that road, lest the Bob Ross Foundation have their ears peeled. So look here. This is important for his smile mark here. See that? We're going to find out where that is. Where does that live, as Ross would say? Let's find out where this little highlight lives. Just sprinkle in some of that Van Dyke Brown. Interesting. We're coming up on the 3-minute mark, and we didn't even... Enough with the chitter chatter over the wires there. I'm getting buzzed. All right, so as we're sort of coming to a soft landing here, you can see that most of the areas where I didn't resolve the grays are reading okay. I mean, there's nothing there that needs to be particularly immediately resolved. So here we go. I don't know, team. I'm making stuff up now. Look at the eyeglass on the right. That's just crazy. We got to figure that out before it goes too far into the Bob zone. Bobby, Bobby, are you there? Well, let's find out. Gosh, it's so much harder than I thought. Let's find this little highlight. And it lives sort of here, right? Not bad. Close enough. Let's find this area here of shadow edge. Very critical passage here where the dark of the brow wraps in and around. We can help to make that curl through. Gosh, well, much more challenging than I thought on this head, at least getting it to a level that had been desired. And I'm still not quite there, but we gotta take a break for now, for the next little bit, although I don't know, I kind of like the brushy look of this one. I mean, why not keep it painterly? Maybe we'll pop in those accents later. But, so here's the game plan. We're going to break for now, and then I think what I'm going to do is my next session will be a time lapse of this hand. So we could even just zoom into this portion and do both hands. Oh boy, that's tough. He's stumped us, but we'll get it the next one. Thanks for stopping in, and thanks for the lively chat. I'm always thrilled to have you hanging out. And for now, happy painting, and God bless. See you, Cinnabon.